Okay, we call this meeting or the hearing to order for the budget for the 2026-27 budget. Sorry, we didn't put it to the flag.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Whalen?
Yes.
Shano?
Here.
Eddie here. Walby?
Here.
Campbell? Here. Open the hearing to the public for the 26-27 budget. Does any public have any comments on the 2026-2027 budget?
Jeremy Bloom, 2110 Fraser Road. So as I go over this proposed budget, a few things stick out. Page 3 of 7, deputy clerk salary, $8,800 raise for next year. Deputy treasurer, $8,500 raise. Those raises are each for one person. If we go to page 5 of 7, our fire department. Your officers are only getting, divided by, I believe, 4 officers, $3,160 apiece. Your firefighters are only getting a $16,500 raise, divided by up to 20, I believe, is what you're allowed in your roster, Chief?
Yeah, I only got 13.
So divide that by 13. These guys, men and women, risk their lives, go to countless hours of school, continuing education. They don't push papers. They sacrifice their family time for our residents, and that is all this board thinks they deserve for a raise. But yet we're going to give secretarial help for deputy treasurer and deputy clerk over an $8,000 raise for one person. I think that should definitely be revisited.
Thank you. Public comment?
So I think Jeff Klass, 1371 East Beaver Road. I actually think you were going with the wrong budget because the new budget is 23 pages. But anyway,
Oh, well.
the numbers are what you stated are probably the same. The problem I have is that original budget that you tried to pass last time with an improper meeting is totally crap because it's missing multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money. Jeremy, you're talking about $8,000. I'm talking about multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars that you did not have in here that you wanted to get passed, and I called it out on a technicality, and that's the only reason this thing is happening today, and it wasn't 2 weeks ago. You failed. I'm not done yet.
Sorry.
You failed in your job as a supervisor to get a budget passed before the end of the fiscal year. The people in the township for the last week can't get paid. There is no authorization to pay them. We have no budget, including the legal guys that were at the meeting last week for the ZBA. It's a void obligation. So, with the new budget, which is much better, I might add, there are still a couple things that aren't quite right. So, if we look at it, according to the Budgeting Act, everything needs to have a balance as long as there is a surplus, or unless there's a surplus in that budget. There's a couple of the funds that don't have a surplus that are still showing up as negative. And we can't pass a budget that way.
Which are they, Jeff?
They are curbside trash, so curbside trash was one of them. Curbside. Cemetery is another one. Cock Island River treatment this month. They all show up as having negatives when there's a negative fund balance. That's not allowed according to the budget. So those have to be fixed before any budget can be passed. There's another thing in here that's close. It's the building inspection. You're showing a negative. There is a surplus balance, but the revenues coming in for the building inspection fund don't even cover the salaries that are listed. It's not against the law, but it's bad practice because you can't sustain that over time. You should be only using the surplus for things that aren't recurring expenses, like salaries. So those things need to be fixed. And then I'm wondering why there's no payment listed under fire for the truck. There's nothing on the budget for this year to be paying off the new truck. So there's a few holes on the new one. It's way better than what was attempted to be passed last week. But I think those things need to be fixed before you can pass the budget. That's your call. So there's three funds that I think need to be adjusted before anything can be passed.
Do you have those numbers that you just stated? Did you guys? Because as a board, we're 5 fiduciaries on the budget, and I had not heard anything from anybody on this to change. So together is what we're here for. What do we propose for these numbers?
For trash, cemetery, and the river treatment, you've got to come up with some other numbers in there. You've got to move money from a different account or something, because you can't pass a budget that's showing a negative when you have a negative surplus or a deficit. And I'm wondering if there's going to be some way to track the payments to the new truck. You would think that would be in the budget. Right, because there are a certain amount every year we're paying that off with.
I couldn't even get an answer what was left in the millage from last year when I started as chief because nobody could find it, so I can't answer any of it. I'm working for free, couldn't I?
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Just calling out facts.
TSA does what I can do, I guess.
So, public comment, Chief, you want in on public comment, if you so?
I don't have much. I guess I do have 2 questions. You know, I'm not gonna beat up the clerk and the deputy clerk because the deputy clerk's here a lot and she does a lot of work, so does the secretary, but I guess I have a question on 2 things. Because I know sooner or later we're gonna come down to my budget, we're gonna cost how expensive the fire department is, but we have a zoning administrator that has 0 hours here, has no time, no calculated, no clocked hours here, he doesn't have any times he has to be here, but yet we have a budget of $48,960 for his salary. We have an assessor who is here, I think, and nothing against both of them, I like them both, but he's here every other Tuesday and he has a $48,000 salary. Man, I wish I could stay home and get paid $48,000. I mean, our zoning guy's almost $49,000. I'd love to sit home 5 days a week and have you guys pay me $49,000 and just come in whenever I feel like it. I mean, that would cut down on the 132 hours I'm here every 2 weeks. So I guess, you know, when it comes down to budgets, because I'm sure I'm going to take a beating on mine, but at the end of the day, and this has been a problem with the zoning before, this guy gets paid less than the last zoning or last assessor did. Like I said, they're both good guys, but I don't understand how we pay people almost $49,000 and we don't have any time for him to be here in the office. Maybe that's 90% of the reason why we have 42 lawsuits for zoning, because there's nobody in here to answer any questions. Maybe we should have him, maybe he should have some hours. I mean, it's just a thought. I don't know much. I'm just the guy that runs the fire department, so that's my question.
I'm also curious what the overall plan is, since this budget says we're looking at a reduction of the general fund of over $500,000. Is there some master plan of what we're trying to drive the general fund surplus down to? Because we're on a pretty good path to get there. I mean, I get it, there's things the township wants to do, but it'd be nice if there was some plan and there was some organization behind it. Because some of these funds, you can't touch. It's not like you can move funds from one fund to another just at random. There's restricted funds in here that and yeah, there's surpluses in them, but you can't spend them on anything. So I'm wondering if there's a plan to try to get the general fund down to a certain amount before we stop spending,
or raise the township millage, which is, if I remember correctly from the last agenda, it said they were going to talk about raising the millage, the township millage.
That is standard legal jargon that has to be in the notice. That has nothing to do with anything. None of us discussed that.
If it was on the last.
It had to be on the publication. That was not an agenda you're referring to. It was the publication that was put out, and that is required legal jargon for the publication for the public hearing. It has nothing to do with us making any changes.
What was handed over at the podium where he stated that?
I understand, that was the publication, and that is legal jargon required on the publication for the budget hearing. It had nothing to do with anything being raised.
Okay.
So trash, we have a settlement that's gonna take place, correct?
Yes,
For funds that reflected.
yes.
How much was collected?
I'd have to look, I don't have that off the top of my head.
You know, when I talked to Weston a week ago, he was trying to get our allocations, but I never seen that. Did he end up getting most of us?
$323,824.93 were collected here.
323 what?
$824.93. And then there is some that are delinquent to the county that will be part of the settlement.
And last year we spent 360 around. So,
Under the recommendation of the auditor, that assessment was not increased on the winter taxes because there was a fund balance. And there's really not supposed to be a fund balance because it is supposed to be collecting just enough to cover what it costs, which is what the retroactive billing.
So in those cases, and I don't know this, is it appropriate to take show another chunk of money coming from the general fund as a revenue for that fund, put the balance there? You gotta call it out in the general fund as an expenditure, but then you would have the balance to be able to not have to be next. I don't know that.
I'm not sure of the answer either. I would have been happy to pursue that had there been a little bit more time to answer those questions.
I guess looking at page 1 here, I see court order reimbursements. The lawsuit that we won against the previous attorney's office for the screw on the fire millage, is that listed in revenues for next year?
Actually, it came in the previous fiscal year, so that's where it would be counted as a revenue. That was just received, and that has to actually be run through the auditor to see the proper way to do it.
Okay.
How much did that end up being?
182,000 and some change. But that wouldn't show up on this
No.
report regardless of how it came in.
I didn't know.
Okay, so we have that number. What is the board's plan with that 182,000? Because we sustained the fire department, the township did, out of the general fund, correct? And I believe, Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, that was brought up last meeting?
So this is actually listed
Trying to ask me a question. so I
on
can-
page 6. It is listed under 205-699.100, transfer from other accounts. That's 110,000 listed there, which was kind of a rough placeholder for 2 annual payments on the truck. So that's where some of that revenue was brought in. The truck payment was not made in the last fiscal year because the amount of money that was left in savings, which I worked with the chief and reinvested so that it was earning more money, it would have basically cleaned out that fund. So there was no direction by the board to take that payment out, considering the status of the millage, and clean out the fund that they have. Instead, it sat there continuing to earn interest. In the meantime, there was no directive otherwise to take that money out. So it continued to sit there and earn money.
So that, I'm not trying to beat up on the fire department, Steve, sorry.
No.
If it comes out as this,
I'm used to it.
instead of, and Jeff, correct me if I know you two are very versed in this. Wouldn't it make more fiscal sense instead of charging the fire department for that truck? I mean, it's taken out of the left pocket, put in the right pocket. We see in state government all the time. What is the purpose of not continuing to grow interest on that to help fund a future apparatus? Because we all know 15-year max, 20 on a truck.
That was already something that was voted on by the previous board. So as of
Okay.
right now, that is an agreement that it was in place, a motion that was passed. So that would require undoing, and again, that's never been brought forward.
I'm just looking, so. Sorry, Charlie, I lost my train on that note.
Were you asking about the number I brought up previously? Is that what you were trying to ask?
When we were talking
For
about
SAD money, special assessment, for fire?
Yes.
Say,
with public assessment fund, yes.
so that was supposed to be approximately, the number that I had was 175,476.90 if and when the delinquent to the county is dealt with as well. Collected was 167,038.57.
And that number is slightly different on page 22, only because of delinquent personal property taxes that people pay.
Yeah. You said 23?
It was a very slight difference for those delinquent personal property taxes.
Jeremy, the answer to your question, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think in the past, no matter what, we took a certain amount of money from the millage every year, put it in savings for that next truck. Right? We were trying to pay ahead.
Once the trucks are paid off, we paid $50,000 a year on the last engine we bought, not this one we have, we paid $50,000. When the trucks are paid off, then I don't know that we took a full 50, but we say we took 30, whatever else,
Yeah.
and we put that ahead for that, and then of course whatever was left in the millage before,
Yep.
just kinda got left in that also. Me being me, because I don't wanna pay any more money to anybody, I always tell them, I says, well technically, really, this new truck's ours. I know we gotta pay the township back from the money that we cashed their CD on for, but I was just trying to. But, yeah, so, I mean, this next truck, there'll be
hopefully some money there.
Well, we sold the old truck for 80,000, and that went wherever it went, and then, so there'll be 50, whatever my assessment is right now, if my assessment's $167,000, technically they'll take 50 grand out of that right away and sock it into the truck payment. That's what we did before. We just took whatever the millage was, millage assessment, whatever it is, we always just took 50 grand off the top.
Yeah, I
And
thought the
we
plan
just-
was always, we were trying to.
And we
save-
always paid some, once the trucks were paid off, we always put some in. If we didn't put the full 50 in, we put 20 or 30 in. That's why we had $310,000 to put towards the new truck, because we always
Yeah,
stayed.
the
at
down
that.
payment, yeah.
I mean, knock on wood, things are good. I hope we won't need anything for a while, but you can't always guarantee that. Big trucks, we should be good, but things happen. So that's typical what we always did.
So what are we proposing, how to fix the trash?
And again, this isn't my thing. I just going by what I read in the law. I think that's the case. I could be wrong.
So once we have settled up on what we
Right.
collected in trash assessment,
Yes.
we'd have a positive of $74,101.28. So
And that gets backdated when it goes back in. So even though it appears negative, that 323 is gonna come back in, and then as soon as the money comes from the county, that's gonna go back in. Which would actually leave us with a fund balance, rough numbers, of about 75,000, which is, previously was 111,000. So there was enough for us to work off of with the trash pickup, as the auditor recommended.
and changing trash companies meant we didn't have to increase an assessment, and it already tightened down.
And then once everything is settled up, you can have that conversation with the auditor as far as where that fund balance is and make that determination. Just, which is why when it comes to the trash assessment for the winter taxes, there's a lot of things that go into it. There's variables. So can I say it's gonna go up? I'm not 100% sure if it will or not. I've told people that if it goes up the max amount, if you will, it's gonna be approximately this much, but that isn't determined yet.
So the other question that was brought before us is river treatment. How much did we collect tax-wise in river treatment? That will be a settle up in the near future when the county cuts us that money.
And this was a similar situation where we had a fund balance and it was recommended not to increase it this time around. I would have to double check it. I do think that it was all collected, but there may be one or two delinquent. There's not that many places that actually get that assessment. It's at $17.55, but there was a fund balance in there. Oh gosh, it was months ago. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I want to say like maybe $1,200 or something in there to offset
Yeah,
that
something
amount.
like that, I remember looking at it.
So technically, that would put it until we do the river treatment to the positive
Right.
of,
That's not what's showing now, the budget. Right? It's showing you don't have money in there,
Right.
and now you're going worse.
I think when the money goes in, it'll offset it. I'm sorry, I gotta get to that page.
But then it should be showing in the expected revenue savings side, but it's not, or there's not enough.
Yeah, I get your point. It's a valid point.
It's just,
Just a little off, but as I'm flipping through here on page 15, the special street lights, and we had discussed this at a previous budget meeting, not changing that amount because in talking with the auditor, it was determined that there were at least 2 months where the bill was paid incorrectly. So it appears as though we spent more than we legitimately should have because some of the other light bills were put into that account. So that it is significantly higher expenditure than what it legitimately should be because it's a special assessment. So that needs to be corrected
Yeah,
as
so
well.
when you put an entry in revenue, then expect a correction for 2 months overpayment. You
Yeah.
Put the number there and maybe that balance.
I think it would get a lot closer as compared, and what's sitting in the tax revenues right now.
What is setting in the tax revenues regarding streetlights? Approximately.
It's on page 22.
Well, I was just looking at it, but just asking. Okay.
Well, it's broken down a little bit differently here because of the fact that those, and Brian can attest to this, those consumer bills, it's all formulaic
Yeah.
and how you actually have to do it, so it makes it a little bit dodgier.
The spreadsheet that I had to create to actually come up with the correct formula is extensive, would be a kind word of putting it. If anybody's really good at Algebra 2, that's where you start. And then from there you go into basic arithmetic, and then you bring in some higher levels of Algebra 2, and then you get the right numbers. That's why the numbers were kind of skewed from the 25-26 year, which led us to the overages that the accountants think that we paid into it. And to give an example, when I was talking to the Fraser Township about this specific problem, we realized that they overpaid us $300 and some odd in special light fees because we charged them too much money. But that's okay. It's been taken care of. And now we move forward. We understand that there's problems. Okay? We understand there's problems. The problem is, how do we fix it? We fix it by talking about it like adults. The reason, no, you're fine. And the reason why, we're human just like y'all. Every one of us is a human being. We try to deal with it respectfully. We try to be as kind as we can. We understand there's problems. Please, we understand. There are those of us that have been beating ourselves up about the budget, beating ourselves up about the elections, beating ourselves up every day. We get it. We know. We know there are problems. Okay? When it comes to the trash, when the taxes come in, the money goes into the account and will zero itself out. That's the way it's supposed to work. With some of the other accounts, we know there's some cleanup that has to happen because we had to pay bills that overdrew some of the accounts that came up, but we still had to pay our bills. Those are going to get reconciled before we can put the new budget money in. We have to finish reconciling the old accounts. That's when the accountants come in and they help us clear up everything that's not fixed. But before I can pay bills and move forward, I have to get my budget approved. Does everybody understand that?
So just in answer to Charlie's question, 3354 is what is sitting across those 4 accounts in special light assessments.
Put it back here. 3354.
Yep.
Which is more than enough to take care of lighting.
Well, if we're looking at the ending fund balance, it's negative 3,800. We figured the offset is a little over 1,000 was
I know
overspent.
that.
It was a little overspent on those bills that were improperly adjusted by about $1,000.
I
And
get
this was previous. This
And-
was.
and-
it
Oh,
was
no, I
previous
know
in the
that.
year.
And again, this is a problem that's been fixed. We're working on fixing it completely. This is just going to take us a little bit more time. How did we find out there was a problem? When I went and talked to Fraser Township. That's the only reason why we know there was a problem. The problem's been solved. Let's move on.
Well, Brian, you brought up Fraser Township. Here's a question. I know Charlie was doing this for a while as trustee. The money they owe us for our fire department responding there.
It was like 55 and it was at 60 and
58,000 some change, that's all I'm saying. I ain't saying anymore, I'm done beating it. I beat the horse to death, I've let it to water, I stepped on its head. I'm done.
What are you as a board doing
We had an attorney working on it and we fired him, so I don't think anything's happened since.
First I'm hearing about it.
That's why
No.
you said Fraser and I'm like, wait, Charlie
Hold
was always
hold
on this.
All right. Mr. Bloom, first I'm hearing about it. I will talk with the rest of the board one-on-one. I'll find out the story. And I will fire off some emails to see where I can find out where we're at about it. and I will see what we can come up with.
So if
That's
we-
all I can say on it.
If we go through all of these items that have been brought up, trash, what's the tier? We're over budgeted, but it's going to reconcile itself. Okay.
With a little bit
Cemetery,
of a surplus.
cemetery,
23 when it's printed properly, so.
58,000.
I'm sure. Over here.
Yes. I just didn't know.
I know.
But it's something for me to work on when I find that. Probably not do it, but I'll get to it eventually. The trash will reconcile itself. That'll happen after we, yeah. What was the next one? Cemetery.
With the cemetery.
Where am I at this?
Well, there are no, for what it's worth, there's no revenues projected for how they're in sales.
Yeah, there's.
we didn't have that category for that.
No, there's nothing there.
No, it just needs to be created.
No, it's kind of hard. We put a projected sales on that.
I would agree. That's kind of why I started with for what it's worth. It's a projection.
Well, we discussed it at the last workshop, I thought it was $6,000 or something, was it $9,000? You didn't want us to go over. the
Projected
range.
sales for the Calvariums,
Yeah, wasn't it?
Is that per year? Per month?
Well, what I had, I believe the second sheet was too high.
we sold 10 Calvariums
Well,
in the
that's-
first year, we'd
there's-
have $34,000. If we sold 10. We already have 5 names of people, and we just got the price structure put together. We haven't got the paperwork fully put together yet.
So we've got 10, you're selling for $3,400 a piece,
And
right?
that's if we're not talking non-residents.
Right. You sold 10, or you've got 5 on talks.
So was that gonna be 641.010, is that we were?
I'm trying to read the minutes.
Is this really that hard? I mean, there's a surplus in the general fund. Put some journal entries in there that transfers money to these other funds that are showing underwater, and you're covered.
Yeah.
In the end, if money comes in and you go over, you can move it later in the year with an amendment.
Yeah.
But then the budget should be clean,
So,
according to the laws, right?
yes, Lori, let's transfer the money over.
Well,
I know.
it's not that simple of a thing. This obviously should have been discussed earlier on.
I know.
When first suggested what it was.
It is possible to go to the general fund and earmark it for the returning tax and the reimbursement from the trash.
That's not something I've done before. So, I'll leave it at that. Not gonna go on record. I have to do some checking.
That would be definitely something we'd have to talk to the accounts about.
So,
Yeah, well, that's fine. I mean, you could theoretically do that tomorrow. Can you put that as the plan for the budget? Put the action as call and verify you can do it.
And then implement it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and approved contingent, that's a valid accounting thing you can do. That is, it gets you to a point where you can look at a budget, have something that's clean, that it approves, because you'll do all the rest of the stuff you want to do.
Light, trash. Water.
What kind of number are you
I'm sorry?
projecting that we're gonna need to amend? Only other general fund.
Well, okay. If I'm looking at everything generically right, Charlie's adding it up, I'm trying to do this quickly in my head.
There's likely to be an influx of, I'm gonna be conservative and say $650,000 that are sitting in the tax pass-through account prior to settlement. It's a little bit more than that. Just doing rough numbers. Probably closer to 675, that it has to get transferred over, but settlement has to be completed first. And that is
That's what
waiting
was
on
done.
one thing.
Section.
What's the deficit on this budget we got right now, the negative total?
I think it's the very last page.
22?
23. All funds begin with fund balance under the requested budget. And right above that, where it's estimated revenues, appropriations, net revenues, appropriations, all funds, so
This is 20.
Right here.
Yep.
So could we amend
I'm looking at
based on
$400,000. Well, $425,000.
an adjustment out of the general fund to cover the, this 486?
You came with 46?
Yeah, that's on the last page.
Okay, if you look.
Yeah, but it's $55,000.
Okay,
So,
That number corrects what Jeff brought up.
I'm sorry?
So-
I said that number corrects what you brought up, correct, Jeff?
well, some of that's restricted.
Again, you gotta take into consideration money that's still gotta come back in, so, but yeah. 46 coming from the general fund into that squares up the books.
Well, there's also 200,000 in operating that is not including the settlement amount that goes toward operating taxes. That's just a
Yeah.
general operating.
It's coming back?
That's what's sitting right here.
What is that?
22. 22 does not include that funding of the tax house.
Okay.
All of this stuff, so right here's and that's our operating knowledge.
What's the motion to move forward that would rectify these?
So a motion for the 486 plus
47.
Well, this budget already has an addition, as compared to our last version, of transfer from other funds. I don't know what the idea was behind that, of $100,000 transfer from other funds. That was a new appearance on this. 101502.
Yeah, I don't know what that code is.
It's just, it's a revenue code, but I don't know what the other funds are that it's highlighting for 100,000 just to be put in there. I mean, clearly that was put in there to boost up the projected revenues, but I don't know if that was supposedly general fund transfer. I assume that was the intent. I don't know. That was never something we discussed in the
I get what you're
workshops.
saying, the general, all the numbers that are lacking,
There's only 3 of them.
yep,
Yeah.
These 3. Yep. And you add that to this, to this.
yeah, and that's all we need
55,
to
75.
adjust, because the rest is already there.
And there's already
46.
100,000.
And it doesn't matter if it shows up being 0 with the negative balance, you just can't go further.
Happy, happy.
Right.
Thank you.
Should come out.
55, 730,
So, the motion, let's figure out the motion.
50? Yeah, sorry, I'm not good at that.
No, you pull up the calculator so fast.
That's all I got at school.
So really,